What if the reason you can't get what you want is because you want it too much? Hey, I'm just asking you a question. I'm not attacking you. But have you ever thought about it? Have you ever thought, the more I want this thing, the more I try, the harder I go, the more I seem to repel it away? And then you probably get instances in your life where you don't really try, you don't really give a monkeys. And it's in those instances where you don't really give a shit, you relinquish some of that desire of the outcome where you seamlessly attract it. This is not coincidence, this is law of the universe. And what we're going to do today is we're going to explain the detachment paradox. We're going to understand why the more in which you want something, the more you repel it away. And we're going to look at this through the lens of neuroscience, psychology, and obviously the laws of the universe. And I like to break things down under those three headings because it gives everyone an opportunity to understand it from the channel in which they understand it best. Some people who don't believe in the laws of the universe, who don't understand all of this, they're more science driven. And if they're not science driven, they're more psychology driven. And if we can attack it from all three angles, we can understand it comprehensively. So, diving into things, the detachment paradox. And like I said, you've obviously experienced this at some points in your life. You've been to the point where you think, I need this. And you've probably been at a point where you think, I'm good with or without it. And it's always in those moments of, I need this, I can't live without it, that we actively seem to be repelling away the things in which we want, whether that be the money, the relationship, the achievements, the accolades. We seem to push those away. But, and it's easier to see this in other people, those times in which you or others have said, I'm good with or without it, you kind of relinquish that control from what's going to be the outcome of the event in which you're trying to manifest, and seamlessly, you seem to attract it. You attract the relationship, you attract the money, you attract the achievements. I know in my own life, whenever I seem to sit there and go, you know what, I do not want a relationship right now. I do not want to meet someone. I want to focus on me. Almost instantly, as soon as those words come out my mouth, I seem to attract a partner. And you've probably had the same experience. Or the moments where you think, I need to do this, or I need to pass my driving test, you fail. You failed a second time, and on the third time you think, you know what, I failed twice, what's the worst thing that happens? And it's always on that third time in which you relinquish some of that control, you pass. And this is because detachment in of itself comes from the place of where you want it. One thing we need to understand is that we're going to go for a bit of blue. When you're leading from attachment, that in of itself is speaking out of the energy of I lack. I am not good enough without this thing. However, when we come out of the place of detachment, this comes from a completely different angle. This comes from a sense of being internally grounded. This comes from a place of self-assurance. And the way in which I want you to visualize this is the moment you say you need something, you want something, you naturally seem to put it on a pedestal. You seem to put it above you. And regardless of which lens you want to look at this through, whether you want to look for it on the laws of the universe, you want to go law of attraction, right? You attract what you are. If you put something above you, you're actually not going to attract it. You're going to repel it away. And if you look for it from a neuroscientific lens, you can look at the fact that your central nervous system, your CNS, can't actually accept it. You can only accept what you are, and that works through psychology, through the self-concept, neuroscience, through your nervous system, and the laws in the universe, because you are what you attract. Whichever law you want to look through for the laws of the universe, they all say the same thing. And these words right here really clearly demonstrate that, because when you are attached to the outcome, you're essentially saying, I'm going to die without this. This is part of me. If I don't get this thing, I lose this massive part of my identity. And losing a part of your identity is essentially losing part of yourself, which we don't want to do. On this side though, when you're eternally grounded in the knowing of the assurance that you're going to get this thing, guess what? You're good with or without, therefore you can attract it. What you've seemingly done is place something on the same level as you, therefore it's drawn to you. All this is magnetism, and that's why we've got the magnets repelling what we want away, repelling what we want, closer to us. But I do know that I love you, and you know that if you want me to, what a wonderful world this could be. Neuroscience. How does this relate to the idea of the detachment paradox, and how can we start to leverage neuroscience in our favor to bring our attraction, things that we desire to have, into our life effortlessly? So what I want you to understand is that there's 3 states in which your nervous system can be in. And this is through something called the polyvagal theory. A man called Stephen Porges, I'm probably going to get that wrong, Porges, something like that, Porges. He essentially understood something called the polyvagus theory. Now, that essentially states that our nervous system exists in 3 profound areas. We've got the ventral vagal, the sympathetic, and the dorsal vagal. Now, you've probably often heard of the ventral vagal being understood as something called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is an easier way to describe it. You've probably heard of the sympathetic state in something similar to fight or flight, and the dorsal vagal is emotional shutdown, okay? And one thing which we need to understand is that your nervous system determines 90 to 95, nearly, maybe 99%, nearly 100% of the actions in which we take, right? It determines quite literally everything. Why? Because your nervous system's job is to keep you safe. It's to stop you hurting yourself, but it's also to stop the things which are unnatural to you, right? Your nervous system's job is to protect yourself, and guess what? Who set the barriers and limitations for what you need to protect yourself by? You. And something in which your nervous system might need to repel is success. Is actually the things in which you want. Why? Because your body's not used to those things. Your body's not used to the success. It's not used to the money. It's not used to the healthy relationship. This is why people that have had traumatic relationships in the past that have emotionally scarred them, their nervous systems cannot handle a healthy relationship. That's why you see people get into relationships and they somehow make a healthy relationship toxic. And that's because within themselves, their nervous system couldn't hold a healthy relationship. And the way in which it manifests is your partner could be doing all the right things, but if through your lens, you are seeing that person and going, no, they must be cheating on me. No, they're saying this because they want to hurt me. Even if that person is doing those out of a healthy, grounded internal spot, which is nothing but coming from a place of love, that person will see it differently and push that person away. That's because their nervous system can't handle a healthy relationship, but we do the same across every area of our lives. If we get money, we push it away. If we get success, we repel it, simply because our nervous system cannot handle it, because it is a direct threat to what our body possesses it as, okay? So what we need to understand about these 3 states is these 3 states clearly determine the actions which we take and how we see the world and how we're able to handle things on a subconscious level. So the ventral vagal state, this is your area of flow, calm. It's your area of maximum creativity, right? And a good example of when your body is, or your nervous system is in the ventral vagal state, is when you're having a conversation with your friends where there's no pressure. You find that you're not stuttering, you're not staggering, you're not overthinking the words in which you need to say, because you're acting right out of this flow state. And that's where your body is relaxed. You're not thinking about what you say, it just needs to be coming out. It's a bit like me right now in this video. I'm not really thinking about what's coming out. I'm also a vessel for my subconscious mind, okay? The sympathetic state is your body's fight or flight. Now, what's going to happen here is you're naturally going to be anxious. You're going to overthink. You're going to be perceiving threat more than usual because hormones like adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, naturally going to be higher. And when those hormones are released, your body will naturally be more anxious. Your heart rate's naturally going to be higher. You're going to overthink. You're going to perceive everything as a threat because that's the state in which your nervous system is in. And we still need this state right here, the sympathetic state, because this state is designed to protect you. If you're being chased by a lion, you don't really want to be in flow, calm and creative, but you do want to be overthinking, you want to perceive more threat and you want to be slightly more anxious because that anxious feeling is what's going to inspire more fast, critical action, okay? And then this dorsal vagal state is basically emotional shutdown. Now, this is the spot where if you've experienced things like disassociation, this will happen here. If you've had panic attacks, that's messed it up. I've only got one arrow for everything else. If you've had things like panic attacks, it happens here. And this is when your nervous system completely shuts down and does everything it can in which to protect itself. Whether that looks through complete emotional suppression or it looks like a panic attack. Your body responds in different ways to protect itself from anything coming in, okay? Now, the way in which this links to detachment, okay, is because when we attach something, we're actually not attached to it, we're actually attached to the fear in which not having that thing draws into our life, okay? When we're acting out of a place of fear, guess what? We're operating in the sympathetic state. So even if you want something so badly, everything inside you will do everything it can to grasp this thing, because you're inside scared of what life looks like not having it, you're acting out of the sympathetic state. However, you're going to repel it away through this place right here, because we know that to attract the things which we want, we need to be acting out of a place of flow, out of calm, out of our maximum creativity, and that's how we're going to draw these things within our reality. Okay, and another concept which I want you guys to think about is something called your RAS. This is your reticular activating system. And this is a really practical way for you to visualize this, okay? So your RAS, your reticular activating system, is essentially how you perceive the world. And depending on these states in which you find yourself in, you're gonna view the world differently. Like I said, if you're in this sympathetic state, naturally you're gonna see more things as threat. You're gonna be more anxious and you're gonna overthink. Therefore, problems that arise, you're gonna see as threats to you. You're going to see them as things that are going to throw you off course. You're going to see problems as problems, okay? But in your reticular activating system, if you're acting out of a ventral vagal state, right, you're in a state of flow, you're calm and creative, you're going to see problems as a place to grow from, as a place to find solutions from, a place to be slightly better from. And that's a much more productive place for us to sit, because then anything that comes up, we're just going to take this as, this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is a chance for me to exploit my creativity to overcome this hurdle. And it's a chance for me to act in flow. Have you ever thought, when I'm trying too hard, I can't do it, right? And a great example of this, I'm not a golf player, right? But I do enjoy going to Top Golf here and there. I'm shit at it. And you stand up, I look forward, I'm like, this is easy. Take a big old swing, club. I'm watching the ball fly, it's gone 300 yards, right? And I'm like, I'm amazing at golf. 10 tries later, I get worse because I'm thinking about it too much. Because at this point, I'm scared that I'm not gonna hit the ball as far. My body can't operate in a relaxed state. My subconscious mind can't take over. Your subconscious mind is so much more efficient than your conscious. And that's why when you're encountering any problems, to do it in a state of flow, calm, creativity, all within this state right here, it's going to be so much more productive to where you want to get to. So can you see now through the lens of neuroscience why when you perceive something as I have to have it, I'm going to be ruined if I don't have it, all of these bad things are going to happen as a consequence if I don't achieve this thing or become this or acquire this asset, you're going to perceive it as a threat to you, and therefore you're going to repel it away through the actions in which you take. And you can probably see this manifest within the experiences in which you've had in life so far. The more in which you really need something, the harder it is to act. Have you ever thought, right, I'm going to throw a good example, you're like, I'm going to throw this tissue in the bin, and when it's stress-free, it goes in. But if suddenly somebody puts pressure on it, they can't do it. Footballers, when they take a step up to get a penalty, right, in the World Cup final, they could probably put the ball in the back of the net, 99 out of 100 goes. But as soon as that pressure steps up and the whole country's watching, and if they don't score this, their country goes out, they knock it over the crossbar, or they stumble, they slip. That's because you're consciously thinking about it too much. You're in that sympathetic state and nothing productive comes from this state right here. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're regulating our nervous system. We need to make sure that we're in this ventral vagal state as often as possible, because the more in which we're in this state, the more in which we're flowing. When we're operating out of flow, flow is essentially your conscious, your unconscious mind exerting itself. When your unconscious mind, like I said, your unconscious, your subconscious, same thing, are your direct and most powerful form of thoughts, emotions, and ideas, because we pull them from a different place altogether. That's why we call them these things in our life shower thoughts. If you ever think, when you're thinking so hard, trying to remember the name of something or somebody, you're like, oh, I just can't remember, sympathetic state. Later on that day, you're in the shower, you're like, Jonathan, and you remember their name or you remember the name of the place. You're allowing your subconscious mind to work. And when you allow things to flow through you rather than trying to force them, things come your way. Your reticular activating system works in your favor, and all the things in which you're trying to acquire, become, or have become inevitable because subconsciously you are powerful enough to acquire them. Empty your mind. Be shapeless, formless, like water. Do you know who said that quote? The one, the only Bruce Lee. And I want you to hold the idea of water in that mind as we go through the laws of the universe and how they relate to the paradox of detachment. The first law, the law of rhythm. In a way in which I want you to, oh, big squeak, I want you to visualize the law of rhythm is like water, is like a wave, right? Because everything in the universe works in waves. It works in the same rhythm. Everything, when you breathe in, you breathe out. Light comes up, it's day, it's night. Consciousness, you're conscious, then you're subconscious, right? Even the hokey cokey. Put your left foot in, your left foot out. In, out, shake it all about. You do the hokey cokey. Why? Because that is what it's all about, right? You've been taught this from a child. Everything in which goes on within your existence, within the universe, works in a wave. The stock market, it goes up, it goes down, right? Everything flows even down to the energetic waves, right? In which you emit from your body, in the way in which everything in the universe is constructed, all through a wave. And what does a wave mean? It means that we get ups and we get downs. We get ebbs, we get flows, we get seasons. The year moves in seasons. We don't sit there in summer and hold on to summer, and then when winter comes, we're surprised when winter comes. We're like, oh, why did winter come? No, we just expected it to come because that is the law of rhythm. That is rhythm manifesting itself through seasons. Everything follows this rhythm, right? Including you. Including your life. And you can probably visualize this now. You go through these periods in life where you're riding a high. Everything's good. Everything you touch, you've got the Midas touch. You touch it, turns to gold, you're winning, right? And then you transition into things suck. Everything seems to be working against you. You think, why? Why, universe? Why are you conspiring against me? Why is everything going wrong? And you've definitely said those words. Why is everything going wrong? And what we seem to do is we seem to hold on so tightly when we're down here, but when we're up here, we seem to forget that down here existed. And that's the paradox of the law of rhythm. And this also ties into the law of detachment, because when you understand detachment, you understand this law right here. You understand that to have highs, you must have lows. You understand that to have light, you must have darkness. This is the law of polarity. This is yin and yang. Everything in which you have has to have an equal and corresponding force. This is what Newton spoke about. Everything that goes up must come down. But you don't think that applies to you. You think that you should flow effortlessly through life and nothing should hit you. You believe that everything should just be an up. But guess what? You can't constantly have an up without a down. If you were happy all the time and you were never sad, guess what? Happiness wouldn't exist. Happiness would become the baseline. And what we wouldn't do as human beings is have this amazing, colourful emotional experience that we have. But our problem is we get too attached to either end of this spectrum. We get attached to the high. We get attached to the low. And we put too much of our self-worth in those boxes right there. And what we attempt to do at the top is freeze that wave. Not understanding that in order to get to the top of the wave, you have to come back down to the bottom. And when you understand that life flows this way, it allows you to detach. And when you're going through a bit of an ebb, when you're going through a little bit of a lower time, it allows you to understand that, okay, I've got perspective right now. I've got retrospection. I know that right now I'm down here and I'm going to become up here. And there's an amazing quote in a Rudyard Kipling poem called the If Poem. And it goes like so. I'm pulling it up on my phone. I want to make sure that I do this justice. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. Triumph and disaster, they are both imposters, because guess what? When we're up here, this is triumph. When we're down here, this is disaster. And what we do is we assign both of these periods to our self-worth. When things aren't going well, we don't feel good in ourselves. We think, oh, I'm just not good right now. Things suck. I'm not good. I'm not good at this. I'm not. But then when we're up here, we're like, I'm unstoppable. Nothing is stopping me right now. I'm on top of the world. And you're always on top of the world until the world is on top of you. So what we need to do is we need to detach from these cycles of life the same way in which you can detach from day and night, the same way in which you can detach from summer, autumn, winter, and spring. And when you learn to do that, you can understand that life flows in this rhythm and things aren't supposed to be all sunshine and rainbows all the time. What does this mean? What does this little weird little saying mean? This is not hocus pocus, this is essential mentalism. And mentalism is the idea that the universe is being constructed by you. Everything in which is going on is down to you, because the universe starts with what? You. And when we can start to understand that everything going on internally starts to become a manifestation of everything we see externally, this helps us put everything into perspective, right? If you're living in a space which is cluttered, it's full of shit, it's messy, it's usually because your mental state is messy, cluttered, and unorganized. Okay, and when we start to become attached, we start to operate out of a place of lack, because that's where attachment is. That's what attachment is. They're linked closely. If you're attached to something, it's because you're actually rooted in the lack of it. If you're working out of lack from below, your reality is going to show you more signs of lack. So you can see this manifest itself within different forms and different laws of the universe. And even if you want to go by a more basic law of attraction, you attract what you are. Well, if you are in the place of lack, you're going to attract more of that. It doesn't work as seemingly as easy as, I want this, give it to me. Because by having to have something, you're pushing it away. It's what happens in relationships. You find out one person needs the other person more than what they need them back. And then what happens is this need starts to push this other person away rather than pull them closer. You probably notice the moment in which you kind of cease a little bit of that relief and you just exist. You exist in the now, you exist in the presence. Things seem to flow to you, and this is how magnetism works. This is how charisma works. Have you ever realized and been so curious as to why certain individuals seem to attract so much attention? They're magnetic, and the reason they're magnetic is because they're working out of a place of authenticity. When you're authentic, you know who you are, you've got self-assurance, therefore you don't need to try and impress people, right? You're detached from the outcome of people needing to like you, people needing to have you. And as a result of that, people are drawn to you. There's a reason why people are naturally charismatic in life, and it's because they're good with or good without. As below, as above, as within, so without. So the law of correspondence is a fantastic way to visualize this within your reality. To the mind that is still, the universe surrenders to. Because as soon as you are still, you are present, you are grounded, naturally things are going to come to you. If you've ever read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, or you've already gone through some of Ryan Holiday's work, he speaks largely of the Stoics, and people view Stoics as people that don't care. And that's not what detachment is. Detachment is being good and also being good without. It's a standard, grounded state of self-assurance. And it's not saying I don't want this to happen. It's saying that I'm not attached to this outcome manifesting itself within my reality, right? It's total mastery of I can control what I can control, and I also can't control what's out of my control. Okay, and this is how we're going to start to understand how to overcome it and how to deploy this into our own reality. Detachment doesn't mean you care less, it means you've expanded your sense of self beyond the outcome. Your identity is bigger than any result. And that is a reframe in which I want you to take into the integration of this within your reality. You need to realize that you are not your achievements in life. You are not the things you have, you're not what you've accumulated, you're not what you've become. You are far greater than that. You in of yourself are a miracle. What are the percentage chances of you being here? I don't know that statistic. What is it, 1 in 10 billion or something? You need to realize that you in of yourself are already the miracle. And you can't take any of this to your grave. And to some of you that might sound quite nihilistic. It might make you go, well, what's the point in any of this? But what that actually does is it gives you this incredible sense of freedom, of flow, of creativity. Because when you realize that none of this really fucking matters, and that one day you're going to be in a grave, you're going to have a tombstone, and people are going to remember your name maybe once every 3 months, nothing really matters. But I want you to take the freeing aspect of that. I want you to not take it for the morbid side of things, but make you realize that I am far greater than everything in which I achieve. And not assigning yourself with everything in which you achieve also allows you to free yourself from what you don't achieve. Because what we often do is we tie all of our self-worth to everything we are and everything we're not. And as soon as you take that away, you lose every bit of sense of self, when all of that was just a fabrication of the ego. Your ego is essentially your identity. It sits underneath your identity, and your ego tries to protect you. And that's why you act out of a place of fear, out of a deep desired root cause of lack. Because you truly believe that when you don't have this thing, it's going to destroy you, because your ego feels under threat. You need to dissolve the ego. You need to dissolve that sense of, I am what I have, and I am what I've achieved, because you are far greater than that. And the moment you realize that, you realize this thing right here is the moment in which you can start acting and operating out of a place of assurance. Because when you're acting out of assurance, you don't care what other people think. You don't care, because you are happy in of yourself. Have you ever been working on something and it's got no real outcome, but you realize during that moment that that's probably the greatest bit of work you've ever made? Because you're actively in this state of flow. You don't really care what other people think. It's not under the spotlight, but that's the greatest bit of work that you've ever produced. Because you don't give a shit, because nobody's going to see it. But how about if we could take that attitude and that reframe into everything we do in life? Because that's essentially what matters. Nothing really does matter. Nobody cares. Nobody is considering what you're doing. They're only considering how it affects them. So when we can take this into everything in which we do, we can start to really detach ourselves from the outcome from it. And this is also going to allow your nervous system to understand this as well. Because when your nervous system understands that you're now acting out of a place of freedom, the work in which you are going to do naturally is going to have a better outcome. And then what's going to happen is your nervous system is going to be able to accept everything in which you are trying to give it. If you're trying to cultivate a romantic relationship in your life, you're trying to cultivate and manifest your future life partner, right? How can you expect your nervous system to accept that when it comes if you can't even love yourself? How can you expect someone to love you for everything in which you are when you haven't come to love yourself fully? You're too attached to the outcome of somebody loving you, therefore when it comes, you're going to push it away. And the moment in which somebody shows signs of pulling away a touch, even if it's so subtle, you're going to take that as a complete rejection and you're going to freak out. And this is why you see these different attachment styles in relationships. You get the anxious attachment, you get the avoidant, right? The avoidants push away, the anxious hold on tighter. The anxious holds on, the more in which the avoidant pushes away. And all this is two nervous systems which aren't formed to work together, right? It doesn't work that way. You've got one that's trying to grip tightly, and the other one that's like, whoa, 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 trying to let go. And as a result, they go like this. They go further and further away from each other because their nervous systems aren't in synchronicity. And this works with everything in life. Like, you can see that analogy play out in relationships, but this also plays out with every desire in which you have, right? If you want to make money, you want a successful business, but you hold on to that so tightly, when you do that, your nervous system's not going to be able to accept risk. It's not going to be able to accept things not going as well as what you want them to go. It's not going to be able to grasp the idea that not every month is going to be the best month ever, and that shouldn't determine your success. And just the same way in which you fear failure, you actually fear success, because we know through the law of polarity, if you fear failure, you actually do have a fear of success at the same time, because you cannot have one without the other. If you're fearful of dark, it means you're actually fearful of the light. You have to live in this perfect harmony with both, because they are the same thing on different ends of the same continuum, okay? So you have to make sure that your nervous system is regulated. And the way in which we do that is, for one, understanding this reframe right here. And also understanding that you're enough, and understanding that all you're ever trying to cultivate within the universe is a feeling. You don't want the loving relationship, the partner. All you really want is to make you feel loved, you know? And that's where most people's love comes from, a relationship, and essentially it's a trauma bond. They want a relationship because they have a lack of love within themselves, which that person is filling. So it's not that this person loves this person, it's that they love the feeling that this person cultivates within inside them. And it's not that you want the car. It's not that you want the brand new car. You want that feeling of acceptance. Do you want the money? Why do you want money? You don't want money at all. You just want to get rid of the feeling of scarcity, and you want to fill yourself with this feeling of being confident, accepted. You want to build that self-esteem, right? And when you understand that all you're trying to cultivate is feelings, you can cultivate those feelings within inside of you, and that's choice. You quite literally can just feel that emotion before the thing arises. And Neville Goddard speaks about this. Neville Goddard was one of the first to understand kind of the law of attraction and manifestation, how to bring things into your reality. You have to assume the feeling of desired outcome already fulfilled, okay? And when you understand that when you feel abundant, when you feel naturally grateful, you're going to attract more of these things into your reality, more things will come, right? Why is it when you feel this inner sense of self-love, you have more love to give to other people? Why is it that then naturally the right things come along at the right time? You meet the right person, you meet the right opportunity for business, because you're naturally within that energy, you're within that emotion which you're trying to cultivate from the outside. It's the law of attraction. Happiness attracts happiness. Security attracts security. Abundance attracts abundance. When you can align those states together, as within, so without, as below, so above, things will start to come into perfect harmony. And I think the final way to be able to integrate this within your life is through the skill of retrospection. Look back in your life at all the instances in which the things in which I've spoken about today have actually played out in fruition, because then you can start to accept them. Look at times in which your life where you have let go of things and have worked out in your favour. Look back at your life through the law of rhythm. When have things been high and when have they been low? And when you can start to see this, you can then start to plan it in the future. When you understand that, you know what, every hard time is leading you to a great success, you actually start to appreciate the hard times. When you understand that letting go means that you can have more, when you understand that relinquishing, trying to control what the outcome is, you can actually state of flow and better things come to you, you can naturally start to do that more. So what you need to be asking yourself is, how has this manifested itself within my life already? And how can I cultivate that feeling and use that clarity within my retrospection to manifest that more? The thing that you need to understand about the law of detachment is that everything is on its way. You need to ask yourself, have I got the capacity to hold this? When you plant the seed, which you're doing through your internal conviction, your internal desire, are you letting that plant grow? Are you letting that seed fertilize and become something? Or are you constantly digging it up? to make sure that it's growing. And if you're constantly digging it up, the seed is never going to grow. Peace.